So I want to start at the beginning of the Deague story. It's 1867 and W.H. Deague migrates from England. Tell us about that pre-migration story and what you guys know and can share with us.
William Deague arrived, as you said, in 1867 to Bendigo, obviously during the gold rush. Bendigo was called Sandhurst back then. And to be honest, we learnt most of this history back then when we opened a hotel there about 4 years ago. We did one of the art series hotels there, and we really delved into the family's history, which started in 1867, Bendigo, which William Deague in fact built the tallest chimney in Victoria in 1867, and was one of the founding members of what is now the Master Builders Association. And the family's been in property and property development and building since then. Bendigo, then it was over to Perth during the gold rush there, but predominantly in Victoria.
How much of that story makes up the fabric, do you think, of the company today? Obviously, it's still a family-run company. Do you take inspiration from, obviously, your father, David, and then further down the track, William, as well?
We definitely do, and it's very much a family-run company now. It's very much, family-run, operated, very much an open-door policy. Everything that we do is around the family company. Mm-hmm. My father had exactly the same thing, took over from his father. My father David, his father was William Henry, so it was a natural progression. And we were there when we were kids, when helping out our grandfather at the time, and can clearly remember him on building sites at Surface Paradise after my grandmother passed. He had nothing to do, so he did a little block of apartments up there, and we were helping with the gardeners do the final landscaping. And my father's, we've learnt everything from him, from a very hands-on, practical way of doing things. Johnny's got 4 kids, I've got 2. So, we hope that we can instill everything that we've learnt into them, and perhaps they come and join the company as well. And
I saw him here earlier this morning, your father David. He's still quite involved in the business. What's his role, I guess, in these times at the moment?
He's here every day, but he's not as active. But he doesn't have too many hobbies outside work, so he still loves it on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, not as active as 5-10 years ago. And
at what age did you guys get involved in the business? And was it sort of a natural tradition to go into the business? Did you explore other avenues outside property, or was it just you went into it because the parents were in it and that's what you knew?
I kicked off at university, which wasn't there for that long. I was very keen to get into the workforce, but I started a course, and I think a month in I was just eager to get going. So I came straight into my real estate licence at the same time, came straight into the business and learnt, really tagging the old man and following him around to all his meetings, and then slowly made my way into through different parts of the business, but certainly for myself more on that sales, marketing, the operational, the business side of things. It was just straight in after school, so it was a steep sort of learning curve that first few years, but certainly I think was learning on the job was certainly the right way for me.
And yourself, Will?
Yeah, similar story. I don't think there was ever contemplated that we wouldn't join the family business from this age. When I don't want to plead too much hardship here, but school holidays when we're 13, 14 years of age, on building sites, Mount Martha Valley Country Club, big subdivision, we did a couple of summers down there. So that was a great learning experience. And then it was straight in, literally from the day we finished school. Didn't do the gap year, labouring on building sites, which was honestly one of the great things to do, because you know what you can expect out of a person and whether they're pulling the wool over your eyes. But I was similar. I wanted to do the property course at RMIT, and I got 1 tertiary point less than was required, so you could say my studies at school were very close to being very efficient. Wrote to the dean, I'd be a great student, all that sort of stuff. I got in, I lasted a couple of months at best, and then I was straight out in the car with the old man, learning from the practical side of things, which suited me. And
tell us about the Deague business today. What's sort of your role at the moment, and what sort of projects are you undertaking?
It's been a very busy and taking on a little bit more risk than we normally would 20 years or 25 years. We obviously did the art series hotel. We've had a couple of these commercial assets which we've owned for sort of 20 years. Mm-hmm. We've run serviced offices and a telecommunications business and a real estate business for 20 plus years, which we still do. But we started the art series hotels maybe 10 years ago, exited 2 years ago. That was a good property play. We weren't hoteliers, and we still sort of don't think we were hoteliers. It was more a real estate play, which worked out well. And then we've done some apartments in the last 5, 6, 7 years. Probably done a couple of thousand apartments in Brisbane, Adelaide, Box Hill, just finishing a big one in West Melbourne now. But what I alluded to earlier is, we've been builders all our lives up until maybe 4 years ago. I've got my residential licence, my father's got his commercial builder's licence, and we were on site every morning, 6:30, hard hats, walking up and down the sites, and knowing every nail that went into the building. And it got a bit too big. It's a very specialised business, and the margins are very slim. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we started with third-party builders. Hickory, Hutchison, Maxcon. We've got Hutchison building an office building just here, and you spend your time at the start on the plans and getting the contract right with the builder, and then you almost don't go near the place for 2 years. Like West Melbourne, where we're doing 520 apartments now in 2 towers. They're all pre-sold. We can't make any changes if we want to. We go to site just to have a bit of a look and for interest's sake. I've probably been to site 10 times in 2 years.
And with so many builders going under, what's the process for selecting a builder? Is it sort of reviewing their track record? Is it knowing them personally? What do you look for when you are going?
It's definitely knowing them personally, and a builder, before we start with them, wants to look at our balance sheet. Well, we want to look at theirs. But in saying that also, we don't necessarily use tier 1 because we think they can be a bit more expensive. So tier 2 is sort of our space, but all the ones we use are up there and very financial. So, and worst case, we know, look, if they fall over, we can jump in there straight away and take it over if we needed to. So.
And so, Will, you're on sort of the development side, and then Jono, you're on the sales and marketing side. Tell us about that.
We've got, we'll talk about like key assets like here at King's Business Park, which is a big part of our portfolio. We've got 70 pretty important tenants here, so I spend a bit more time day to day with the clients. We've got our real estate business, we've got 1,000 property managements, our serviced office business, which is has been going now 20 years, and we're still expanding that. Nearly in all our developments, we'll organically grow either our serviced office business and our real estate business into them. So whether it's a new commercial building, they'll take space there and we'll manage the whole the property as well. We might do a resi development and we might come in and do some managements there. We might do some sales. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Whatever we're developing, there's sort of the businesses flow on. So certainly in this commercial market as well, the last couple of years has been there's been a real lift. We're I think right across the board probably 98% occupied in all our buildings, in our assets that we own, but then also in all our other developments we've done in the past that we're still managing.
And what led the push into the serviced office 20 years ago, before sort of the WeWorks and all these other new players came into it? What sort of led you guys into being in that space?
We like to think that we see WeWork now and how big the co-working is going. We like we've been doing it for a long time, but look, very much where we've always, when we were doing commercial developments, we would have the serviced office component there. One, to fill up usually on a ground floor some space that I think really activated the building, but then secondly, to actually grow, to allow businesses to grow then into the building. So a client might come in on a one-person office, and then a year later they're taking a long-term lease up in the building, or even further they might be buying an office. So it was a great incubator into all our businesses, into all our buildings, where clients might start off as a virtual office, then a small serviced office, and then grow. We've had some great stories of tenants moving then down into having 1,000 square metres down here in one of our King's Business Park, so that have taken that journey the whole way through. So it's a good business, and even hasn't been affected by the whole growth of co-working, because there's just a lot of people out there that want a private office.
And with the Art Series Hotel, you touched on it earlier, Will. What was the opportunity there? How'd you see that? You said you weren't in the hotel space. What led you to create that brand and get into the hotel space?
We bought an old hospital in Preston, the Panch Hospital, Preston and Northcote Community Hospital. Must have been in about year 2000. It was a huge site out there with 8 wings, and there was homeless living there and asbestos ridden and the whole bit. And we converted that into about 850 units. And to fill those, we just started making up hotel brands. We had a budget brand and a mid-tier brand and a high-end brand, and then we had some student accommodation. Then we had so we sort of learnt out there, and we had Ridges as the main hotel brand there. Then we saw what was going on overseas, and in particular this guy Ian Schrager, who was the founder behind Studio 54 nightclub in New York, and he came out and he was the first guy that did boutique hotels properly. He did the Delano in Miami and some incredible hotels in New York. So we saw what was happening there. Nothing was being built like that in Australia. So at the same time, a couple of great sites came up. There was one on Security Road, there was one on Commercial Road, Bob Jane T-Mart. there was a billiard hall on Chapel Street, and we went to the auction and bid on these sites and bought them all in the space of a couple of months. And then just started building all these hotels. We built them ourselves, we came up with the brand ourselves, we did the interior design ourselves, and we just opened 3 hotels in the space of 6 months in the middle of GFC with no great sort of boutique hotel experience. We named them after famous Australian artists, and it all just sort of worked, with a big focus on customer service. But in saying that, they were always a real estate play. We built them at the right level, we bought them at the right level. We then sold the freehold with 10-year leases, and that to individual overseas investors or local investors. And then about a year later, Mantra knocked on the door and wanted to buy the business, which included all the liability of the leasehold. So we're happy to exit those almost exactly 2 years ago to today. It was November 18, 2 years ago. And in the sale process, we had one in Brisbane that hadn't started being built yet. So we excluded that. We built that. We didn't know whether it was going to be an art series or another brand. It ended up being an art series called the Fantuzo, and it's in the most incredible food and beverage precinct under the Story Bridge on the edge of the city. So we're very happy holding that hotel, and unfortunately I'm getting a bit too involved again with the management of it, but enjoying it.
How do you just go and create an entirely new hotel brand and then position it so well and get huge occupancy and that sort of thing? Where do you get the inspiration, not only for the design but also the branding?
There was a lot of detail or a lot of legalities around if you could name them after an artist. You had, at one stage we're going to call the one hotel the Blue and have all blue artwork in it from different artists, and we got over the licensing that way. I think luckily we ended up naming them after famous Australian artists, and we knew a lot of these artists and we've got to know them a lot better. We came up with the brand that way, and then I guess we took a lot of inspiration from what was happening overseas. And we travel a lot to all these good hotels around the world, and you come back with all these ideas. We had some incredible marketing ideas that the Steal Banksy campaign that sort of put it on the map a little bit. And some celebrities staying in the hotels, and I was never allowed to say dob into the media who was staying, but I let it slip that Justin Bieber's staying. All of a sudden, it's the front page of the news, and you put it on the map a bit. But another reason around the art series was when we sort of started off. Early on in our business career, we looked at every developer out there, and every developer that you can basically think of at some stage in there, if they're a true developer, they have some ups and downs depending on the cycles. So we looked at cash flow and how can we come up with something that we retain the cash flow, and no matter what happening in the development cycle, we just ride our way through it. So the art series was a way solution for that, and we ended up sort of 8 hotels around the country, and all performing well. I was hands-on. I was looking at daily arrivals and send the champagne to that guy and send the champagne to that luck, and not getting so much in the running of
the reports of who's staying and who's leaving,
and issues and daily occupancy. I would not get too involved in the sort of the running of them, but I would host like a weekly innovation meeting. What can we do different? Customer service, and that's, I think, maybe one of the keys to success.
And you've kept the one in Brisbane just sort of as a generational asset, or just to hang on to?
It's so bloody good, that hotel and that location, that we kept it. I don't know the future of it, whether we hold it long term. At the moment, with where the market's at generally, around the world and in Australia and in Victoria, it's getting pretty hard to buy anything with income, because the yields are in the 4s now. I just can't get my head around that. And even on some of the development, we're looking every day for scouring your website every Sunday when it comes out to, what can we buy? And the problem is with these superannuation funds and overseas investors, they're kind of working on different profit parameters than what we're used to. We're not going to go do a development showing a 20% margin, as I spoke about earlier. A good part of our business now is our loan book, and we've started a company, Deague Capital. We're probably compounding interest, lending it out to other developers and investors. If you can get between 10 and 15%, it's a lot easier and less risky and less work than doing these huge developments and making 20% return.
And so with those developers then that are utilising the services of Deague Capital, what are you looking for from them? Are you looking for experienced management? Are you looking for a track record of successful projects?
Yeah, all of the above. Like we looked at one recently and was like, well, there's no way we would go into that deal ourselves. So we look at the developer, we look at how much equity they've got in, we look at what happens if we had to take over, we look at location, price point.
Who sold them? With our experience, we can have a pretty good look at a deal and
evaluate
assess it.
And in terms of opportunities, you did touch on it before, how hard it was to find opportunities at the moment. What particular sectors are you looking for? So you've got the Murray Street, which is the office building, you've got West Melbourne, Box Hill. So you're still keeping to residential and offices?
Yeah, mainly residential and commercial. We're lending to a bit of industrial, but it sort of doesn't, we haven't got a feel for industrial ourselves. We've done a little bit of house and land in the past, but we recently, or 18 months ago, bought some land up in Craigieburn, which the PSP will go through next year, and we'll get into that. We'll do about 1,000 house and land packages or 1,000 blocks of land there, and we're going to probably cut a bit smaller than normal for the price point. Yep. We'll probably build a couple of 100 townhouses ourselves and package them up, and just looking at a way to. The problem with house and land, it's one, it's boring, and two, you can't add a whole lot to it. You can't put amazing palm tree landscaping in lakes and get an extra 10 grand a block because the guy comes out there, he goes next door and buys there, because it's that fickle. We'll have a look at that. We might do some more house and land, but we just want to prove this one up. If there's a site in the city with an old permit for resi, we'd buy it tomorrow. Still got a lot of confidence in the apartment market. As I've been singing from the rooftops for years, I think we've got the biggest undersupply of apartments coming on ever. 140,000 people moving in a year, and the cranes are coming down like you've never seen, with nothing going up and nothing for sale with a permit. But at the same time, with those permits, our philosophy forever has been to appeal to the masses. We don't like penthouses, we don't like expensive stock. We want the smallest one better we can get, the smallest two better we can get. Livable, like a well-designed 50 square metre one better is fine. And you sell it for $500,000, you get the $500 a week in rent. It's affordable for everyone. Yep. We always get stuck with the penthouses.
You look at St Kilda Road now, there's a fair bit of development and apartment development down there, but it's all in that luxury market, which is not assisting in the affordable sort of housing sector.
When you are developing, say, the residential product or the commercial product, what sort of fundamentals do you look for in the site?
I think we've always bought pretty well. Box Hill, we sort of paid $12.8 million and got a permit for effectively 650 apartments. It's like, works out at like 16 grand a box or something. So that's now 100 grand a box. So half the profit's in the way you buy. South Melbourne here, that we actually was on your portal when we bought it. We paid about $26 million for 4,000 metres of land with a permit. There's a good uplift already. So a lot of it's in the way you buy, and that's why we're struggling a little bit at the moment, because everything we look at is we're just getting monstered in the pricing. So,
and with that development process, apart from the building, everything else is done in-house. So you've got the sales and marketing and all that sort of things done in-house. Yeah,
mainly. Less and less now. It used to be all in-house. We used to have our own in-house architectural firm, interior design, everything. Now it's getting easier, and that's maybe why I used to say every taxi driver can be a developer, because you can put on a development manager for 15 grand a month. He can run the whole site for you. But you still need to have the bank relationships. You still need to be able to make the sales. Jono is very innovative when it comes to leasing. We've just come up with a great idea to put a very luxurious Mercedes Sprinter, not just shitty bus seats, but like get in, recline, fin review, bottle
American
water,
style,
full American style, and it's going to tour. It's going to leave quarter to the hour from Moray Street, arrive at Collins Street, back through the city, past Kings Business Park, Moray Street, all day, every day, and it's free for the tenants who are in our 6 buildings here. So just different things like that to stay ahead of the pack a bit.
That, and what sort of other technologies do you think have changed the way you guys operate, or the industry generally?
I think the commercial side now, there's finally been a bit of a change, and we're developing out our app for Moray Street, which is, for example, the Sprinter. You can GPS it, you can see where it is on its path. But now you swipe, so you swipe when you're coming up to the door to get in, instead of everyone pulling out their big little thing and swiping in. And now it's on the phone. You shake your phone, it's Bluetooth, door opens. For something like Moray, we're putting a bit of money into an app there that is not only beneficial for all the tenants, but it gives them a lot of data back to tell an owner how many times the staff are going to the gym, and can tell everyone's check in and check out, what time they arrive. But on the resi side of stuff, there's still no whole change in that whole sales and marketing. There's still, anyone's launching a project, there's just still an amazing display suite, and they're getting better and better. But the marketing and the brochures and stuff, it's all still. I still think there's another level of technology that, in terms of the actual residential and selling off the plan that they'll go to. So yeah. And
you touched on tenants. How do you think tenant demands have changed as well over the past, say, 5, 10, 15 years? Are they more demanding, with environmental and social and all that sort of thing.
There's been a big focus on that here, and the health and wellness side of stuff. We've just taken out about 25% of the car park here to put in our health club, the end of trip, not just bike facilities and change room, but yeah, the full health club, gymnasium, sauna, full towel service, and really putting on monthly events for the tenants here in the building, and so that certainly has changed. I mean, any standard building now, you go in, that's the stock standard. So we're now looking at sort of taking that to another level, and the same with Moray. We've got we're really shooting for, we've got the air purification, the water purification. You can't have any, you can't buy a can of Coke in the building.
Yep.
Small portion sizes of bowls, like all of that stuff flow throughout the whole building. So, and the guys making the decision at the end of the day, for their employees, they love that stuff, and it's important for them. So, there's certainly been a shift in all of that.
And do you think that's the way it'll go from here on, sort of outwards? Do you think,
that's going to
2020?
That's going to come the norm.
And just talking 2020, the market, where do you see that sort of going?
I think it's going to be strong again. I think with debt so cheap, we just did a construction facility with an all-up rate. I think 2.75% interest or something. Just incredible. So with debt so cheap, and a lot of these buildings take time. You don't just buy one and start tomorrow. West Melbourne's probably a 3-year project at least from go to woe. So I think the market's going to be strong. I think yields have probably got a little bit more to go on the way down. They are getting pretty tight, because if you look at what yields are overseas, 4 to 5% yield here is pretty attractive still. I think there's going to be more and more money coming out of Asia, which is going to prop up our housing market, and our the affordability is going to be a problem. I think rentals are going to be very strong for residential for the next couple of years.
The last 3 sales in the city have been to Hong Kong purchases, so you don't know the effect that's going to happen there.
And on the residential side, what sort of component would you say would be overseas, either investors or buyers, and has that moved over the past 3 to 5 years?
So for a project like West Melbourne, 30% overseas buyers, third buyers, but all sold here in Australia. So the people haven't campaigned in Beijing and Shanghai. They've been bought here in Australia. So out of that 30%, I think 8% of them, since they've bought till they've settled, have then since got PR. So they've since got residency and now not FIRB. So we don't like to expose ourselves to more than that. I mean,
it's more how much you want.
5 years ago, you could go over to China and you could sell everything. But the crash, and I think with money, getting money out being a little bit easier, that was okay. But now to go and launch a project in China, I mean, the risk on that is it's something that certainly we wouldn't look at.
But in saying that, we've been involved in a development in Collins Street, 260 apartments. They're all settling at the moment, and is that 50%?
Yeah,
FIRB.
Yeah.
So that's strong. That's a lot.
Do you think that's because of the location?
It's the way they were sold. That was the focus was selling them up there. So.
Final question: what do you see, or what do you think is the future of the Deague business moving forward? Obviously, you mentioned that you potentially want your kids to become involved, but what else do you see it sort of continuing down the steady track that it's on?
I think it's been a hell of a sort of 20, 25 years on being what we've done and how busy we are. I think the opportunities, like we sit here, and I went to New Zealand with a couple of developers last week, and we're all saying, what are we going to do next year? The opportunities, you used to be able to find an opportunity, in a couple of weeks, and you got your next deal, and away you go. At the moment, we're looking at everything, struggling to find sites. We're obviously settling West Melbourne and Collins Street now, but that's all done and dusted by February next year. We're building this office building here, which is sort of no huge burden on time from anyone in the office. So we're looking at everything. We want to continue to do what we're doing. We're both pretty young. We're both ambitious. We both want to be busy. The thought of waking up in the morning, not being able to fill the day is frightening. So we want to keep doing what we're doing. Jono's got 4 kids. I've got 2. Who knows? Who knows what goes on in 20 years' time when they want to join. But we sort of love what we do, and property's in our blood, and we don't necessarily want, other than a bit of money lending in the property space. We're not really, we've been burnt in equities, and we don't want to look too far outside of property, but so probably just keep doing what we're doing.
I think from the family side of stuff, like for Will and I, like we all sit in the same office, and which is great, and a nice open plan here. Because we're not all day, every day in the same meetings, because we're doing sort of separate things. And I think I said this at at my wedding 8 years ago, but we've never actually had an argument in this whole sort of 20 years because we're just not sitting here like, making decisions on the exact same things all day, every day. So it's quite unique that how that works. So
I was going to ask you about that. So do you reckon that, because obviously in a lot of family businesses, there's disputes every day. Do you think it helps, obviously, having, your own distinct roles? That's your role, that's your role.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as someone completes a building and someone sells and delivers it and settles it, then it's worked very well.
Very good. Will, Jono, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.